So, all this time, you sillies have thought that I was wanting to be a commentary channel. No, I've actually wanted to be a gaming channel, but I can't do that because of my game storage limitations. So I'm going to try and meet in the middle here. A tier list for beginners on Helldivers 2. So we're talking sub-level 10, and what your first Warbond should be based on my recommendations. If you don't think I'm qualified for that sort of thing, I'm sure you probably don't even know that there is a sliding function in this game. And if you knew about that, then I bet you probably don't have all of the Warbonds. All of the weapons. All of the ship upgrades. Now, if you don't care about my advice and you don't want to watch this video, that's fine. You can go back to playing Call of Duty where they have stuff like this, a reciprocating charging handle. That is totally fine by me. Otherwise, I'm going to do my best to try and, well, speedily but carefully explain what each Warbond does and how to best utilize them and which ones I think are going to be the most and least effective for new players. Now, with that being said, I'm going to pass this off to Webcam Sugi. Take it away. This is going to be the tier list portion where I talk about if I recommend things for new players or players who don't have the Warbonds yet. Now, keep in mind that this is a recommendation to newer players primarily, so this is under the assumption that you do not have all of the game mechanics learned. We're going to start our ranking. We're going to be putting chemical agents in D. Why are we putting it in D? Because the guard dog is the only redeeming feature of this Warbond. The ability to confuse and blind enemies while also dealing damage to them, and even going after some larger enemies like Chargers and Hulks, is very handy. It can disorientate and buy you time, which is very valuable to keep you alive. The stim pistol, however, is not very good because it's very hard to hit your teammates, and it's hard to communicate, sit still, when everyone's running for their lives. The sterilizer is also not good because it doesn't leave a gas cloud. It's like if you took the flamethrower and you just removed the ability for it to leave the fire on the ground. The armor passive, which I will show, is not very good, and it is not going to be recommended even if you do run all gas. However, noted, if you run heavy armor with this passive, which you can get from the superstore, and I don't think from the Warbond, you do not take any damage from gas, so you can stand in a cloud and you will be fine. That is the one upside to this armor passive. Though, any armor that has just one passive on it, that is to negate an effect, we'll get to it, but I'm gonna say I'm not going to recommend anywhere throughout the video. For our first B tier, we're going to be putting Borderline Justice, and I can hear some people who are like better at the game groaning. Its armor passive is not very great because newer players have a tendency to forget they even have a secondary. It is great if you do remember you have a secondary, but that is not the case for newer players. The revolver is very good. You can only shoot it about 4 times before it overheats, and that is very handy, but it still has that skill gap of if you are panicking and you just let loose, then you're gonna overcharge it, and then you're gonna have to change out the heatsink. But unlimited ammo is a very big upside, plus medium armor penetrating. So it is something you can rely on if you just need to get 1 or 2 enemies out of your way fast. The jetpack is very handy, however, It's not movement based, it's verticality based. So it is very good for getting up on top of things, which can be handy for new players, but you do need to have an eye out for that sort of thing. Most of the time, you'll fly up in the air, and if it is swarm enemies you are fighting, they will keep up with you and then eventually overtake you while you're coming down and trying to land. The Deadeye lever-action rifle is very handy. It is very... It's like the Constitution's older brother. It does extra damage, it has rounds reload, but it has extra bullets in the mag, in the tube, sorry. But because it is lever action, there is time in between shots, so you have to make sure you make every shot count. It does stun some enemies or stagger them, but it is not reliable because it's more to like lower, medium, and small enemies, which it usually will just 1 to 3 shot anyways. Very good Warbond. Do not sleep on it. However, I once again would not recommend it for new players because it is kind of skill-based. The grenade is very handy though. It has the biggest radius, so it can take out lots of enemies. Well, biggest other than the pineapple, but we'll get to that. The F tier, which I know some people are going to absolutely tear me apart for, the Halo Warbond. And I'm not going to touch upon this beyond. This armor passive is not worth it until Arrowhead makes their stealth better. The weapons, you can get the same performance out of the weapons that come for free in the free Warbond. This is purely a cosmetic Warbond, and it does not come with super credits that will help you towards your next Warbond, which is not new people friendly. I could not recommend this less. If there was an F- tier, I would put it in there. Because it doesn't come with a stratagem, all of the weapons are outperformed by base game free ones, and the armor passive sucks. I understand if that's an unpopular opinion. I like Halo 2. I have this Warbond. But it's not good enough to justify recommending it to good players. It's not even worth mentioning to new players. One that is recommended very, very highly, and one my roommate, it's the first one that they ever got, is Democratic Detonation. It does have a downside of it is mostly explosive weapons, which means that you may have a tendency to delete yourself or your teammates. But they are explosive weapons. That means you can clear objectives, you can clear groups of enemies, that means you can do lots of damage to single target enemies, and that means sometimes you can use it to finesse and stagger enemies, so it buys you time to actually hit their weak spots. For example, the shield devastators, you can shoot them and it won't destroy them, but it'll stagger them, so you can either use a follow-up shot or you can pull out your secondary and shoot them in the head while they're regaining their composure. The Eruptor is one of the very few heavy armor penetrating weapons that you can just have on your character in your kit. It is very handy. It is very good. It is essentially like a slow autocannon as a primary. The grenade pistol is very handy. I run it very often. I can do objectives and have a miniature pocket grenade launcher. There's nothing else to say. The grenades are amazing. The thermites means that you don't need to bring AT. If you just bring a supply backpack, you can take care of tanks with just your grenades. You lose the ability to take care of swarms and take out objectives, unless you're talking about the automatons and the illuminate, because then you can just chuck it on an illuminate ship, and it will burn through the shield and explode, and you don't need to shoot the shield down. You can just chuck it on there and forget about it, which is very handy, but I would not recommend using it to close bug holes. The Adjudicator is the highest damage medium armor penetrating assault rifle. It is the second highest damage medium armor penetrating weapon in the game, to my knowledge, as of this recording. It is very fun. I've been using it as of late. It's very friendly to new players. This entire Warbond is a W. The armor passive is also very handy because if you are running explosives, like I mentioned, with these weapons, there's a much lower chance of blowing yourself up, which is well recommended if you have a tendency to accidentally shoot explosives too close to yourself. Servants of Freedom. I'm going to be putting down into C, and I have specific reasoning for this. The double-edged sickle is a really good weapon that can do light, medium, and heavy penetrating. But that's after you shoot it for a certain amount of time, and it starts to deal damage to you. It also doesn't take very long before it starts doing damage to you. So, it's a really good weapon, but mainly as a gimmick. Because I would not recommend it to new players at all. Because if you're running for your life and you're just shooting, there's a good chance you might just forget to stim, or you might not notice, because who is going to be like, oh yeah, my gun hurts me? The drones, the grenades, do not help as much as I'd like, because they try to target objectives, but they can't always break them. So it's kind of like you lose an objective, like the grenades that can close bug holes and stuff like that, but you gain a drone. It's like a guard dog, but it just flies towards the nearest enemy and just which is very hilarious. But it does have the problem that the mortar sentry does, where if a teammate, especially if you're playing against bugs, if a teammate has a bug running at them and you throw that grenade out, it's just going to dive bomb that bug and it's going to take your teammate out too. The armor passive. Well, just read that. That's not very good. The ability to blow up after death when you could just have something that prevents that in the first place. It is very funny, but it once again has the problem of if you're running with a teammate, it will take them out too. It does have the upside of when you get called back in, it will blow up the enemies that, took you out, so you can just get your stuff back a lot easier. But I don't really think that's worth it in the end. The ultimatum is really good, but it's like having a 500 kg in your pocket that you can just fire as soon as you need it, but limited ammo capacity, plus it does have that heavy arc, so there will be times where you take your teammates out with it if you don't know what you're doing. Also, it is really inconsistent. I have, on a couple occasions, shot a Bile Titan with it, and then it doesn't take it out. So I reload, and I do it again. And this is on the Bile Titan's, like, upper back and head area, and both shots don't take it out. I think that's just, like, I don't think that's actually how the weapon is supposed to perform. I think it's supposed to take out those enemies in one shot, but sometimes it doesn't. So just keep that in mind. The Hellbomb backpack is good, but some players don't even know you can drop the backpack, which if you press X on keyboard and mouse, I don't know what it is on any other system, you can bring up a weapon wheel where it shows you how to drop it will allow you to drop the objective, samples, your support weapon, or your backpack. And if you drop the backpack after setting the Hellbomb off, which will be 5 on your keyboard by default settings, it will activate the Hellbomb. If you didn't know, that's also how you take the ammo out of the supply pack, and that's also how you turn your guard dog off and on. So if your guard dog is attacking your teammates while you're running around, you can just press 5, it will fly back onto your back, and then you just wait until you have enough distance from your teammates for that to not be a concern anymore, and then you just press 5 and it gets off and it flies around again. It is really hard to use because the Hellbomb backpack, it is a big bomb. But flying in and destroying an objective is hard because you have to pathfind. You have to know how to weave in between the enemies fast enough. Because if you're using it, that means that you're probably not going to be carefully getting rid of every enemy, then going into the objective. You're just going to run in. So you have to learn to pathfind, you have to learn how to drop the backpack, and you also have to know the timing of it. Because if you don't get away fast enough, it will take you out too. Get the deck! So it is very powerful, but once again, I would put it lower because it does have its issues. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my neighbor is vacuuming upstairs, which is really annoying because they've been doing that all day already. So I apologize if that comes up. I'll try and put some music or something over it. Masters of Ceremony, I would be putting in D. I would put it in F, but it is redeemed purely by the armor passive and the sword and the primary. The primary is good. It doesn't really outperform anything, especially being light penetrating, but it does have a bayonet, which is handy. It's like the Constitution, but it has a bayonet and it doesn't suck. So that is very handy. The armor passive is also really good. It used to be way worse, so now it's actually viable, and it has good drip. Unfortunately, though, the flag stratagem isn't very handy. It's just for aura farming and fun, pretty much. That's really all it's got going for it. The pyrotechnic grenade is cool, but just stick with incendiary grenades that you get from the base game. You'll be fine, trust me. Freedom's Flame goes all the way up in A. You don't get a stratagem, but you do get 3 primaries, one of them being my personal favorite shotgun in the game. It can stagger enemies backwards, which means you can stop charging enemies, so like a brood commander, not a charger. And it sets them on fire, and it does a lot of damage. It is a all-around punishing weapon. It is the Punisher, but a little bit better. I very highly like this weapon. You get the Torture, which is just a flamethrower in your primary slot, which means that you get an extra stratagem slot. It gets the bonus points of if you combine it with the chemical agents. That is a crazy combination, that guard dog and the flamethrower primary, because you can lay down fire and gas so enemies don't know where you are, but they're taking damage from 2 different status effects. The Crisper is a really nice handgun specifically against the bugs and the Illuminate, because you can shoot fire behind you, because if you didn't know, any one-handed weapon, when you're running, as long as you turn your camera around from opposite of the direction you're running, and you don't aim, you can just fire, and you will shoot your weapon. Like, it'll be less accurate, but you'll shoot it behind you, and you'll stay running. So if you do that with the Crisper, it will leave a trail on the ground that the Illuminate or bugs will catch fire on, and then they'll barbecue. It's just handy. Urban Legends, I will be putting down in D. Urban Legends goes down in D. It would be better, but its armor passive is good, and the anti-tank turret is great, but it is slow to rotate, and it's not really recommended to use anti-tank emplacements or any emplacement that keeps you stationary against either the bugs or the Illuminate, because they will just swarm you. However, because of that skill gap, that's why I can't recommend it more. If you know what you're doing, being able to take out armored targets is huge. It is very handy, but only if you know what you're doing. It comes with a stun lance, which I think is really bad. It is a melee weapon that only targets one thing at a time, which is worse than the sword, because at least the sword does a swinging sweep that can take out multiple enemies in one slash. Cutting Edge, I'm going to be putting down in D as well. The armor passive only has resistance against arc, which most people don't use. The plasma shotgun is not very good. The blitzer shotgun has a tendency to barbecue teammates. It's inconsistent, and also it's really slow. The sickle is decent, but it takes a sec to charge up before firing, which can get you into a tricky position in bug and Illumina position or fronts if you're not prepared for it. So once again, not very new player friendly. The dagger pistol is pretty alright, allowing you to have essentially a pocket magnifying glass that cooks enemies that are behind you as long as you're shooting backwards, and it doesn't run out of ammo as long as you don't overcharge it. That's enough D tiers. We're going to be putting the Control Group Warbond in B, and that's because every time I rank this, I put it a little lower. and that's because the nostalgia's wearing off. It has a low ergonomics, light penetrating weapon as its first page item, and it is a good one, don't get me wrong, it is a good weapon, but I would not recommend it to new players. The Epoch is a really good utility weapon, much like the Quasar, but because it's just essentially a charge up rocket launcher that, unlike the Quasar, you can fire a couple times before needing to reload, and that's really handy because that means you can get multiple uses out of a rocket launcher before having to reload. But if you charge it up too much, it will blow up, taking you and the weapon with it to Valhalla. Would not recommend it for new players because that beep 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 that it warns you gives you like a second, maybe like 3 before it blows up and it takes you with it. The warp pack is really handy, but it is similar enough to the jetpack that I wouldn't say it's worth getting the Warbond just for the backpack. The passive on the armor is not good. I could not recommend it less. If you want something that will save you from potentially passing away, this is not it. If you pass away from while wearing this armor to something that doesn't mangle your body, then you come back for a temporary amount of time with a permanent bleeding effect that you can't stim away. So instead of saving you from passing, it delays it, and it is not handy. Just run Democracy Protects, because if you take any sort of lethal damage, it doesn't matter if it mangles you or not, it has a 50% chance for you to just not perish, and then you can stim and then just keep going, which is very, very useful in contrast. Handy, but skill gap, so I would not worry about getting this. It's fun, but it's not the best. Let's see. Another A tier, Steeled Veterans. Servo assisted is not crazy, but it is very good. It is a nice utility passive that you cannot really say no to. It is always around to have a fun time, but there are better ones. And the Liberator Concussive is just a slower firing Liberator that staggers enemies backwards. So it is handy for pushing and keeping enemies backwards and away from you. So useful against the Illuminate and the bugs, but it also doesn't fire fast enough to deal with entire swarms by itself. Skilled weapon. Personally, I would find it's more a weapon that you mess around with, and less so a weapon that you you actually enjoy a lot. The Jar Dominator, medium armor penetrating, heavy damage, semi-automatic, really good weapon. Only limiting thing is its heavy recoil and limited magazine. But it is very handy. It is a very good weapon. The Breaker Incendiary, just the best semi-automatic shotgun in the game, but now sets things on fire. And then the Senator, the only heavy penetrating handgun in the game. You can 3-tap a Hulk to the visor as with this thing. You do not need, if you're on the automaton front and you just don't have any other reason to use anything else. Even on the Illuminate front, you don't need anything else other than the Flam Torture and the Senator, and maybe a supply backpack, because you can use the Senator to shoot the eye of a harvester and take it out, as well as using the flamethrower to deal with smaller enemies. So it is very, that is a very handy thing to have. Its booster isn't super great, so like all the other ones, I'm not going to talk about the boosters because I don't really think any of them are super worth it. But I would recommend this Warbond simply for the Jar, Breaker Incendiary, and the Senator. Also, it's a revolver. Revolvers are cool as hell. Polar Patriots, I'm going to put down at F, and that's purely because it is a weapon Warbond, so it doesn't come with a stratagem. and all of the weapons are just different, slightly worse versions of ones that you already get. The Pummeler is great, but it's just the Defender with a slower fire rate, less damage, and the ability to stagger enemies. But it's not really good against the automatons, so you must be using it for the bugs or the Illuminate. But it just isn't good enough to hold its own, so you need something to back it up, which is not, I would just say bring the Defender. And even then, I wouldn't really say bring either of those SMGs. I'd probably say bring like a Liberator if you're going to bring a light armor penetrating weapon. Definitely not the Pummeler. The Tenderizer is good. Good damage. If you are looking for just a slight upgrade from the Liberator with a smaller magazine, that's the weapon you're going for. The Purifier is just the Scorcher from the free Warbond, but it has a charge-up shot. That's it. You click and hold and it does more damage, but you can also just fire it semi-automatic. So it is just a different version of something you get from the base game. And also, speaking of base game, the armor passives in this one, you also get from the free Warbond. So, once again, can't really recommend it beyond it having the, like, cosmetics. If you have nothing else, get these. But F is just like, do not get these unless you got everything else. D is like, I would get these, but I get these like second last, and so forth for the rest of the list. Viper Commandos, I'm going to be putting up in C. And I know people are going to call me crazy for this one, but I love peak physique, I love melee, so I would not recommend melee for new players. But peak physique is very handy for new players in the grounds of players who've only played something like COD and don't understand or are unused to the fact that your weapon doesn't snap to your cursor. It makes it very hard to target. A lot of new players that I've seen, at least, like level 10 below, they will fire before their weapon is actually aiming at the thing that they're pointing at. So with peak physique, that completely removes that problem. It also makes it easier for larger weapons that have way more sway or more drag when you're aiming to aim them, which is very handy. And you also do more melee damage, which, if this is going to be a little sneak tip, if a bug gets in your face or an Illuminate guy, even if you don't have a melee weapon, just melee real quick if they're about to hit you, and it will offset them, and they won't be able to hit you. So you can just smack them in the face and finish your reload if you just needed that extra second. It is a very handy tip. So, and with peak physique, there's a good chance that it might just finish that enemy off. The secondary is decent, but it is not the best. It is very comical to put it and shoot all 3 barrels at once and just blow a trooper's head off. Let's think. The Liberator, I can't remember what it's called. Carbine, I think, is just the... If you took the Stalwart and the Liberator and they had a baby, it is just a Liberator with the Stalwart's fire rate. It is very handy to have if you want something that just sprays lead. That is your weapon, other than the Knight SMG, but that's not a Warbond, that's a game upgrade, so I'm not counting that. The throwing knives are not good. I would not recommend them. You get 6 of them, but they have a tendency to bounce even off the enemies that they're supposed to hit and destroy or defeat. But you'll throw it and sometimes it will bounce and it will just come back and it will get you, and I wouldn't recommend it just for that. And it does have the best booster. If you're gonna get any of these for just the booster, I would say the Viper Commandos, because that extends your stim duration, you run faster, and you deal more melee damage when you take those stims. So if you're wearing heavy armor and you run out of stamina, you pop that, and you can run again, and you can run as fast as you're wearing medium armor, pretty much. Which is very handy. But most people run that anyways, so once again, not on the top of the priority list. Truth Enforcers, I'm gonna put at A. used to not like this Warbond because I really don't like the Reprimand SMG, but it is the highest damage dealing medium armor penetrating weapon, but it has a slow fire rate, good amount of recoil, so like really unwieldy, and small magazine, so it usually feels like you can't finish off an enemy before you run out of ammo. And well, you can finish off a enemy, but you can't finish off enough enemies to save yourself. You'll be reloading before you actually deal with what the threat is, and I really dislike that, especially because it has a slower fire rate. The Halt shotgun is probably the second best shotgun in the game. Medium armor penetrating shotgun with the damage of the Cookout. The only difference is that it trades that medium armor penetrating it trades the fire for medium armor penetrating, but it gains an extra ability. It has a slightly small magazine or tube, and in the other tube, so if you press and hold R, you can switch it from its medium armor penetrating flechette rounds to light armor penetrating stun rounds. So if a stalker is sneaking up on you, you switch that into stun, you turn and you shoot it in the face, it can't move. That can save you on the Illuminate and Bug front so many times, and because it has medium armor penetrating, it's very useful against the automatons. That weapon alone bumps it from anywhere it would be to at least B tier. But it doesn't stop there, because the armor passive is improved from what it used to be, which means that it also goes up because it looks good and it performs well. Not to mention that the camos that you get are also really good. The plasma pistol is just the Scorcher / Purifier, but in handgun form, so it is really handy just to have on your hip if you need to take care of something. Once again, medium armor penetrating. And it does it like a little explosive bubble, so it can take care of small groups of enemies. I can't complain. It is definitely a really good Warbond. I would say I just wish I liked the Reprimand more, because I probably would put it up onto S. Going to Force of Law. Now, earlier I mentioned that the gas and the fire, the Freedom's flamethrower and the chemical agent's guard dog, if you throw them together, are really good because they can do dual damage to enemies while still having it does the gas and the fire at the same time, so they get confused and burned, which deals with your enemies while also putting you at minimum risk. Another good combination with that fire flamethrower is the dog from this one. A medium armor penetrating, stunning electricity guard dog. So it never runs out of ammo, it does damage, and it staggers / stuns enemies, and it's medium armor penetrating. That is crazy. A guard dog with medium armor penetrating alone is great. However, their base one runs out of ammo, so I can't recommend it. This one doesn't. However, it does barbecue your teammates. It does barbecue your teammates. It is really unfortunate when that happens. The armor passive is not very good. It's not enough to save you. It's probably outclassed just by Democracy Protects, realistically, because it's just chest damage that's stopping you from getting, and then also it stops bleeding, but Democracy Protects keeps you alive, potentially, and then also stops chest bleeding, so it's just not as good. The Purifier, or Pacifier, is a medium armor penetrating assault rifle that reminds me a lot of the Peacekeeper from Black Ops 2. I like it a lot. It is very handy, but most people don't like it because it deals really low damage. If you are a new player, I can't really recommend it, but I will say if you want to try it, it has the ability to stun enemies that you're shooting at, which is very handy because if they're stunned, that means you can kind of like adjust your aim and find where the weak spot is, and you don't have to worry about that thing just coming up and wrecking you. So it is not the best by any means, but its magazine capacity definitely offsets that it has low damage. I still wouldn't recommend it for new players, but it's not terrible. The de-escalator, I would not recommend for new players. You can fry yourself with it. You can fry your teammates with it, and it has a really punishing reload. It does deal lots of damage and sometimes can even ignore armor, so you can take out like Bile Titans, Chargers, Hulks, Factory Striders, all of these things. But it will take a lot of ammo and you'll need to reload a lot, which is the issue, is that it has a really slow reload. And if you're not used to it, you are going to fry yourself. This Warbond seems like it was built around the idea of you wearing the cutting edge armor, not the armor that comes with it, so that you don't fry yourself. But what this next Warbond has is something that negates all of the one passive armors. So the hazmat armor, the cutting edge armor, and the flame armor, all of these are worse than this one. It doesn't do as much protection, but it protects you from more. And that is our last one, the second S tier, the Dust Devils. This armor protects you from 40% of acid, fire, electricity, gas, and probably something else I'm forgetting. It is amazing. That means you can run the Force of Law guard dog, and if it shoots you, you are way more likely to survive, which is very handy because it can and will shoot you from time to time. Also, that guard dog I would not recommend running if you don't know your teammates, because it is very handy, but you will fry your teammates from time to time. So just keep that in mind. The best way to prevent that is the backpack tip from earlier, where you just turn it off when you're near your teammates. And then when you're back on your own again, turn it back on and it will keep doing its thing. But back to Dust Devils. 40% of everything is much better than 95% of one thing, especially in Cutting Edge is a case, because Cutting Edge, nobody really runs arc. So unless you're running it for the drip, which I respect, that is crazy. The Expendable Napalm is a really good stratagem. It's just the EAT cluster combined with fire, which is very handy because you can just drop it, lay down some fire, and then keep running. It is area denial to a massive effect. It is very handy to have. It is, to be fair though, it's not worth just getting the Warbond for that, because there is the Eagle Fire Strike. That is in the base game. A Harpoon Gun is just, if you took the Railgun, kept it in safe mode, and then it also does gas. So it can take out Hulks and Bile Titans and other things like that. It will struggle against larger enemies, but it does have that gas damage, which will slowly eat away at its health. And also, it will stagger a Charger. It will stagger a Bile Titan mid-spew. It can kill a Hulk if you shoot it in the visor. And it is very handy all the way around. Even if you're just using it against small enemies, you can shoot a spear at the ground and then keep running, and that gas cloud will protect you. The Solo Silo is just a extreme long range 500 kg. It is very handy to have. It's kind of like an expendable weapon where you pick it up real quick and then you use it. Or you can hold on to it for a really long time, but that does bar you from having another strat, like support weapon. It has no limit as long as you can see it. You can put the missile there, but it will hit obstacles along the way and blow up, so just keep that in mind. It will one-shot Bile Titans, Factory Striders, War Striders, I think Harvesters? Don't quote me on that one. It is a very handy thing to have. It will also take down big groups of... It's essentially like if you took a KG, a miniature Hell Bomb, and then made it laser guided. That's how I'd describe that. It is a very, very, very handy stratagem to have, but it's not my favorite to run, just because I do have to kind of play a juggle game of, do I want my support weapon or do I want the missile silo? Finally, the Pineapple Grenade. It's kind of like the opposite of the Thermite, where the Thermite is good at taking out tanks. The Pineapple Grenade is great at taking out lots of small enemies. You throw it and then it explodes and then sends out a bunch of miniature grenades that also explode. So if you are dealing with swarm enemies, Illuminator bugs, this is a good grenade to have. I cannot say it is easily the best because instead of 4 grenades, you get 3, but it is still a very handy option. Oh, I forgot to mention, Dust Devils has the second best medium armor penetrating. So I still recommend Democratic Demolition more, but because it has the Adjudicator as that one, but the Dust Devils has the Coyote, which is a 75 damage, medium armor penetrating, incendiary primary rifle. That is very handy. The only difference is it does a little less damage than the Adjudicator, and it does the fire damage, which the Adjudicator doesn't. Anyways, now that that's over, I hope you learned something new, even if it was just a tip or a trick. If you don't like my ranking video, then please make free to make one of your own and tag me in it, because I will watch that through, and I will definitely, I will let you know if I agree or disagree. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. One tip I forgot to mention was that if you can get it, the Medkit Armor passive I think is easily the best for new starters, given it gives you 2 more stims, that is 2 more chances to survive any sort of situation you're stuck in. This one is a little different than what everyone's used to, and I apologize, but I would really appreciate feedback in the comments on if you'd like to see more or less gaming related stuff. Finally, I want to mention 2 last things. My apartment is going to be fumigated in the next few days, which means that I probably won't be able to get a video up next week, but if I can, it will be probably something shorter. That being said, I'm still going to try regardless of the obstacles. And then finally, I wanted to mention thank you everyone who watched it through this far. If you liked the video, please subscribe. 83% of the people who watch are unsubscribed, so I would value it greatly if you gave me a chance. Anyways, I hope you had a good time with the video. I hope you agreed with what I said, and see you sillies.